Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Jay Penn. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. Jay Dee Penn was born on December 13, 1978, and was raised in Hawaii. He goes by the name BJ, which is short for Baby J. When he was a teenager, he developed an interest in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In 1997, BJ moved to San Jose, California, and started training under a retired Brazilian martial artist. He then attended an academy in Brazil, earning his black belt in the year 2000. Right after this, he competed in the World Jiu-Jitsu Championship in Rio de Janeiro and won gold in the black belt division. He was the first non-Brazilian to achieve that distinction. In 2001, BJ joined the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC. In 2004, he won the welterweight championship in a major upset. Not long after this, BJ left the UFC due to a contract dispute, but returned in 2006. He went on to win the lightweight championship in 2008 and defended his title multiple times. After being defeated in a fight in October 2011, BJ announced that he was retiring from mixed martial arts. Despite this, he fought again in December 2012 and lost by unanimous decision. BJ sustained another defeat in July 2014, this time by technical knockout. His next fight was not until January 2017, when he once again lost by technical knockout. BJ would go on to be defeated 3 more times: June 2017, December 2018, and May 2019. BJ was never given an opportunity to extend his losing streak because the UFC released him from his contract after a video surfaced of him engaging in a bar fight in Hawaii. His record at the end of his fighting career was 16 wins, 14 losses, and 2 draws. In February 2020, BJ flipped his pickup truck in front of a shopping mall in Hawaii. He was not charged with any crime. In 2022, BJ announced that he was going to run for the governor of Hawaii. His hopes were dashed after a defeat in the Republican primary. Over the years, BJ has taken his fighting activity outside the octagon and has found himself in trouble a few times. For example, in January 2015, BJ was involved in a fight outside of a bar in Hawaii. He was arrested and charged with assault. In February 2019, his girlfriend obtained a restraining order against him, accusing him of mistreating her for years. In June 2019, BJ was at a clothing-challenged club in Honolulu when he fought a bouncer outside. In August 2019, he was involved in a bar fight in Hawaii. This is the fight that led to him being released by the UFC. And in January 2021, BJ was arrested and charged with DUI. Some people wondered if BJ's long fighting career did not take a toll on his mental health. Could this explain some of his behavior? This brings me to the timeline of the incident. Starting in early 2025, BJ Penn made a series of bizarre and disturbing posts on his Instagram account. Here are a few examples. On February 20, 2025, BJ wrote about how thieves disguised as law enforcement would steal money. On March 29, BJ declared that CTE is fake. CTE is a serious medical condition which is known to affect athletes who sustained concussions. It is definitely real. On April 9, referring to his family members, BJ wrote, quote, "If I harm any of these people that are acting like mom or my brothers, I go to jail and lose everything. If they harm me, nothing will happen to them and I lose everything," unquote. In a separate post that same day, he implied that his family members were murdered and he needed the police to get these people out of his house. This makes it sound like BJ believed his family members were imposters. BJ displayed photos of family members, pointing out details of their anatomy and questioning their identity. This expands on the imposter component. Maybe BJ believed his family members were replaced with near duplicates. On April 19, 2025, BJ once again claimed that CTE was fake. On May 7, he indicated that he was the only heir left in the Penn family. His whole family had been wiped out. On May 12, BJ implied that his family members were fake. He said, quote, blank you to any imposters. They're doing this to anyone else's family, unquote. On the next day, BJ claimed that he had finally found one of the actors who played fake Jay Dee Penn. Again, BJ's real name is Jay Dee. On May 17, BJ posted a video of himself talking to a woman who appears to be his mother, Lorraine Shin. He kept saying something like, "Even if you were really my mom." In a comment on that post, BJ indicated it was always fun talking to an identity thief. BJ was arrested on May 25 and again on May 26. The events leading up to these arrests were detailed in a request for a temporary restraining order filed by his 79-year-old mother, Lorraine Shin, on May 27, 2025. Here are the allegations that Lorraine made. Lorraine stated that BJ had mistreated her. He believed that she was an imposter who killed his family to gain control of the family assets. When Lorraine returned from a trip on May 11, 2025, she noticed many of her belongings had been removed from her bedroom, like clothing, jewelry, shoes, her bed, and personal items. After BJ denied knowing where Lorraine's property was, Lorraine reported the theft to the police. On May 16, she reported another theft, claiming that her purse had been stolen. Lorraine installed a deadbolt lock on her bedroom door and placed security cameras both inside and outside the home. BJ allegedly removed or tampered with the cameras and put glue in the deadbolt, rendering it non-functional. Lorraine said that on Sunday, May 25, 2025, her mail was missing from the mailbox. She later saw her mail in the back seat of a vehicle occupied by her son. BJ denied it was Lorraine's mail, which led to Lorraine making the decision to contact the police again. In order to prevent Lorraine from reaching the police, BJ shined a flashlight in her face. When she attempted to get the flashlight away from him, BJ allegedly grabbed her arms and shoved her against a motor vehicle. Lorraine screamed for her other son, Reagan, to help her. He lived 2 houses away. When Reagan arrived, Lorraine dialed 911. BJ was arrested and charged with abuse of a family or household member. This is a misdemeanor. He was ordered to stay away from the home and released on a $2,000 bond. On the next day, Monday, May 26, Lorraine claimed that she heard a noise downstairs and went to investigate. She noticed that a sliding glass door was open and saw BJ running from the rear stairs toward the back door. Later, she heard BJ arguing with Reagan at his home and contacted the police. BJ was arrested for a second time and charged with abuse of a family or household member. He was released on a $1,000 bond. The arrest did not stop BJ from posting on Instagram. On May 27, BJ posted a video of one of the times when he was arrested. In a comment on that post, he wrote, quote, "In Hawaii, imposter theft refers to instances where individuals falsely impersonate others, often to steal their identity or commit fraudulent acts. This can involve using a fake identity to obtain documents, financial accounts, or even posing as law enforcement or other professionals to commit crimes," unquote. On May 28, BJ posted a video of what appeared to be the incident with the flashlight described by his mother, Lorraine. The caption read, quote, "Fake Lorraine Shin begging former UFC champion BJ Penn to hit her over and over so she can steal the Penn fortune," unquote. BJ claimed this wasn't the first time that the imposter identity thief, fake Lorraine Shin, tried to assault him. On Friday, May 30, 2025, 4 days after his second arrest, BJ was arrested for a third time after missing a court appearance. On May 31, BJ posted on Instagram accusing the government of taking inheritance from what he refers to as prodigious birth. According to BJ, a person from a prodigious birth is someone who does not conform to the shape of mankind, rendering them incapable of inheriting land. At the time of making this video, BJ Penn is working his way through the legal system. Now moving to my analysis. Even though his record doesn't seem too impressive, like suffering 7 defeats in a row, BJ Penn is considered to be a legendary MMA fighter. Many of his losses occurred because he fought far past his prime. His record would have been impressive if he quit at the appropriate time. BJ also attracted attention for having championship reigns in 2 weight classes, welterweight and lightweight. For quite some time, BJ was arguably an ambassador for MMA and increased the number of fans interested in the sport. Unfortunately, by early 2025, BJ appeared to become erratic, bizarre, and paranoid. His mother, Lorraine, said that she believed BJ was suffering from a Capgras delusion. Many other people have suggested the same thing, especially after BJ's statements about imposters. I don't know if BJ has this condition or not, but one can make a good argument that some of his symptoms align with it. Let's take a closer look at this condition. What is a Capgras delusion? To answer this question, I will first explain what a delusion is. A delusion is a fixed false belief that is resistant to counter evidence. It is associated with a number of mental disorders, including schizophrenia, schizophreniform disorder, brief psychotic disorder, delusional disorder, dementia, and major mood disorders. The delusion can also stem from organic brain disorders like traumatic brain injury, brain tumors, stroke, and CTE. Delusions can take on many forms. For example, paranoid, grandiose, erotomanic, religious, and persecutory. One rare type of delusion is referred to as a delusion of misidentification. This is when a person has a false belief about the identity of other people, oneself, animals, objects, or places. These delusions share 2 common elements: a misidentified entity and an incorrect belief about the entity's true nature or identity. Misidentifying somebody is not normally thought of as enough to qualify as delusional by itself. It really does take both components. A delusion of misidentification can take on many forms. Here are a few examples. The Frigoli delusion is when somebody believes that several different people are actually the same person in disguise. The mirrored self-delusion is when a person looks in a mirror and doesn't believe the reflection is them, but they still recognize other people in the mirror. Reduplicative paramnesia involves someone believing that a person or object has been duplicated. Therefore, they exist simultaneously in more than one location. With this delusion, there is no sense that the duplicate is an imposter. Intermetamorphosis is when a person believes that someone has been transformed into another person, so the original person is completely gone. When a person believes they have transformed themselves into someone else, it's called reverse intermetamorphosis. This brings me to the most prevalent delusion of misidentification, the Capgras delusion. This is also referred to as Capgras syndrome and delusion of doubles. This is when a person believes that someone close to them has been replaced by an identical duplicate. To illustrate the different types of this delusion, I will use an example of a wife who believes that her husband is actually an imposter. In the first type, the wife believes that the imposter is deliberately pretending to be her husband. So this imposter has insight. He knows what he's doing. He may have some intent to do something evil. In the second type, the replacement is actually a clone and may not realize he's a clone. With this type, the clone may have been deceived like everyone else. So the wife is a victim because her husband has been replaced by a clone. That's pretty inconvenient. And the clone is a victim because he doesn't realize he's a clone. So he's going through life having no understanding that he's not really the husband. He's a duplicate of the husband. In the third type, the replacement is an alien, and the husband has been abducted by colleagues of this alien. So, of course, in this situation, the alien is a bad guy because he's in a massive conspiracy to abduct people. And in the fourth type, the replacement is a robot. This robot may or may not realize he is a robot. So it could be an evil robot or a robot that is oblivious and has no ill intent. Many people who suffer from a Capgras delusion notice small details in other people, like physical features. They are always paying attention for little clues they can use to help in identification. They may think that a person's eyes, nose, ears, or mouth are just a little bit different. They cite these differences as proof that there is an imposter. Another interesting aspect with this delusion is that sometimes it can occur exclusively in the visual modality. For example, going back to the wife who believes that her husband is an imposter. She does not recognize him when she looks at him, but if he speaks, she may recognize his voice. So if she was speaking to her husband on the phone, she may correctly identify him. This, of course, would be very confusing if the husband was speaking on the phone and walked into a room with the wife. So she would have the audio component through the phone, but also be looking at her husband. This could create a serious conflict. She may not know what to believe in that moment. She may come to believe that the phone call is fraudulent, even though she initially recognized the voice as belonging to her husband. Moving to the next question, why does the Capgras delusion occur? This seems like such a strange belief, even in the realm of strange beliefs. The most popular theory is that an individual with impaired reasoning experiences a disrupted connection between identification and emotional familiarity. They are able to recognize a familiar face, but it is not accompanied by any type of emotional experience. There is no sense of familiarity. In this state, they develop the delusion to explain why they are not feeling the way they would normally feel when they see a person who would normally be familiar to them. Using the example of the wife who believes her husband is an imposter, the thought she is having might be something like, "This looks like my husband, but it doesn't feel like my husband, therefore he must be an imposter." Whatever the cause, Capgras delusions represent a serious problem as far as safety. They are associated with a higher risk of violence, especially if the person with the delusion believes the imposter is threatening them, stealing from them, or being manipulative. In about 6% of cases, people with Capgras delusions commit homicide. This could certainly cause concern in the case of B.J. Penn. I don't know if he is suffering from a Capgras delusion or not, but if he is, a mental health intervention is warranted. Those are my thoughts on the case of B.J. Penn. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. The most accepted explanation for the Capgras delusion, as I mentioned, is this idea that a person retains their cognitive ability to recognize faces, but they lose their ability to experience an emotion when looking at those faces. So again, the recognition piece is kind of separated into the cognitive and the emotional. The cognitive is there, the emotional is not. So they're looking at the world logically in the sense that they can still recognize faces, but the emotions are cut off. They're not experiencing feelings. It's strange to imagine what that experience must be like, to go through every day recognizing faces, understanding logically that the face fits into one's experience, but not feeling that, not having any emotions about that person. The face doesn't trigger any emotions. It's a world that's very stale, I imagine, where people are just objects. There's no connection. There's no reason to get excited or angry or worried or any variety of other feelings. There's just nothing there. Every face is kind of hollow and empty from that person's perspective. So, in a way, if that conceptualization is a good explanation, and I'm not sure it is, it's really kind of painting this picture of what a world would be like without feelings. If there were no emotional connections between people, then people would be no more special to a person than anything else in their life, any other object in their life. With this person now surrounded by objects, the place that their mind goes is fear. They start looking for a way to explain what's happening. Without that emotional connection, that can't be the person they knew, but it looks exactly like that person, pretty much in every way. Like it's very hard to tell that person apart from the person they knew. So this is where they get the Capgras delusion. It must be an imposter. That's how the logical thought process is thought to work, but of course it's actually pretty illogical. It's a far-fetched explanation. It would make more sense for a person to look inward and say, I must be interpreting information incorrectly. Something must have changed in me, and now my performance has degraded. I'm no longer comfortable trying to identify people. Something seems quite wrong. So I find it interesting that somebody's mind, instead of turning inward, could turn to some implausible explanation. Like, where would these imposters come from? How would they duplicate a person? Why would they do this? Just seems like a lot of work. You got to dress up as the person. You have to talk like them. You probably have to go to their job and perform whatever tasks they performed in that job. You'd have to pay bills. Like, there's a lot of work to being an imposter. Not an easy job. I think it would be a pretty well-paid job. At least it should be. But either way, I think that it's interesting that people kind of go to that the delusion takes them to something completely implausible. And we see this with many delusions. Delusions usually aren't fixed false beliefs that deviate just a little from the truth. They're often really wild. Again, with robots and alien lizard people and other explanations that just wouldn't occur to a lot of people. Delusions are very different than just somebody believing something that's a little bit off. So I thought this was an interesting aspect to look at, to consider what life would be like without emotional connections to people. Even if that's the wrong explanation for the Capgras delusion, it's an interesting thought exercise, and in a sense, a feeling exercise. What do emotional connections with other people mean to us? And what would it mean if they were erased? Would a lot of people go to an unlikely explanation like imposters? Would they look internally? Would they find some other reason to explain what's going on? It's something interesting to think about. Certainly, emotional responses to people play a key role in life. And one way to explore that is to consider what life would be like without those connections. It would probably be a place that was hollow, barren, and frightening.